So good evening and welcome to the Meet the Candidates event for the Town of Malta Town Council. All candidates on the ballot were invited. This event was organized by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County. We would also like to recognize as co-sponsors and thank the Chamber of the Southern Saratoga County and the Malta Business and Professional Association. We would also like to especially thank Pete Bardunas of the Chamber of the Southern Saratoga County for his assistance. He is unable to attend this evening. Michael York of the Lofts at Saratoga and President of the Malta Business and Professional Association would like to say a few words on behalf of the Chamber and the BPA. Michael?
Hello and good evening. My name is Michael York. I'm the president of the Malta Business and Professional Association, and I'm here representing the Malta BPA, the Chamber of Southern Saratoga County, and the Malta business community. Malta is at the center of so much of our regional economic activity, and we look forward to hearing the thoughts, plans, and goals of each of the candidates here tonight regarding their vision for the town of Malta. As you may have heard, the Malta Business and Professional Association, based here in the town of Malta, along with the Chamber of Southern Saratoga County, based in Clifton Park, and the Capital Region Chamber of Commerce, based in Albany and Schenectady, are coming together as of January 1st, 2020, to form a new, powerful business alliance as one of the strongest chambers of commerce in all of New York State. With almost 3,000 members who employ over 175,000 people, and with an annual budget of $4.5 million. We are doing this because we realize now, more than ever, businesses small and large must find a way to come together to achieve regional efficiencies and economies of scale without sacrificing the community focus that our local business groups have always offered. On January 1st, I will be representing the interests of the small businesses of Malta on the board of directors of the Capital Region Chamber of Commerce, alongside and with equal vote to those that represent the interests of the larger businesses, such as the leader of Global Foundries. We're working hard to achieve an important balance so that we can bring real opportunity and real support to the businesses and the residents of the town of Malta. Our business community is happy to support this exercise of our democracy here in the town of Malta, and we greatly appreciate the partnership with the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Southern Saratoga County in putting on this important event. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, as this will help you to create an informed decision on November 5th. And thank the candidates for coming out tonight and sharing their vision for the future. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on.
Thank you, Michael. Before we begin tonight, I want to remind everybody to turn off their electronic equipment, and this includes the candidates and their staffs or friends. We ask that there be no videos from the audience. This event will be videoed and posted on the Saratoga County League of Women Voters website in its entirety. The video taken tonight is the property of the League and can only be used by the League or licensed media. It may not be used by the candidates. We do not make this request lightly. We have had recent incidents of campaigns using portions of our video or their own video against their opponents. Obviously, this can damage our ability to organize these forums if candidates feel the video will be used against them. Thank you. My name is Deb Peck-Kelleher. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County, and I live in the town of Saratoga. I will be your moderator tonight. The League of Women Voters of Saratoga County is a nonpartisan, volunteer political organization dedicated to the informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. That has been the League's policy since 1920. Membership is open to anyone who is eligible to register and vote, whether they are male or female. Please consider joining your local league. The candidates are asked not to distribute campaign literature, but to place it on the designated table. Candidates and audience, remember that this is not an event for campaigning. No hats, pins, signs, or demonstrations are allowed inside or outside of this room. It is the League's policy to hold forums only for contested elections when more than one candidate is present at the event. However, if any candidates who are running unopposed are present, they are welcome to stand and introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. Darren O'Connor, running for Supervisor of Malta. Thank you.
Hi, Darren.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Holmes. I'm running for Malta Town Clerk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Candace Schmidt, and I am running for tax receiver.
I'm Roger Crandall. I'm running for Highway Superintendent for the first time.
Thank you. I realize that many people in the audience tonight may hold strong partisan views. However, I will insist that the candidates and the audience treat each other with respect. No personal attacks will be allowed. I also ask the audience to hold its applause until the candidates finish their closing statements. I will use a gavel to enforce these ground rules. The job of the audience is to listen and ask questions. We will be taking oral questions this evening. Please announce your name and if you live in the town of Malta. Questions should take no more than 30 seconds to ask. Most questions should be directed to all the candidates. However, if a question is directed to one candidate, the other candidates may respond as well. Questions should be clear with no preambles and should contain no personal attacks or inappropriate language. Note that we may not have time for all the questions. When asked, please line up in an orderly fashion at the microphone. The timers for this evening's event are right up here in the front. They will hold up cards for the candidates to look at. Green will mean they have 1 minute left. Yellow means 30 seconds, and red means their time is up. The candidates for the two positions on the Malta Town Council for the general election in alphabetical order are Matthew Koldrick, a Democrat Working Family Party Lines. Timothy Dunn, a Republican Conservative and Independence Lines. And Craig Warner, Republican Conservative and Independence Lines. Now it is time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. They have drawn lots to determine their order. First, we will be hearing from Matthew Koldrick.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and PANSAS for hosting the candidate forum tonight. My name is Matt Koldrick, and I am the Democratic and Working Families candidate for Malta Town Council. I've lived in Malta for the last 14 years, and I currently reside in the village of Round Lake with my wife, Lorene, 2 children, Layla and Charlotte, and actually 2 more on the way this Christmas, so it's going to be a fun winter season for me. I'm currently on the village board in Round Lake as a trustee where I've been since 2018, and for 3 years prior to that, I was on the planning board in the village. Also, since 2017, I was on the water committee in Round Lake as a part of a committee that was able to secure $1.2 million in state grant funding for our village's water infrastructure. Many people have asked me why I'm running for Malta Town Council this year, and it's really pretty simple. In 2006, my wife and I moved to this town predominantly because of its affordable housing and its easy commute to our jobs. But we quickly found out what an awesome town this place is to raise a family. Our move to town coincided with the 2005 town update, the comprehensive plan, which anticipated the entry of Global Foundries into the town of Malta. And they, when the town plan was done at that time, it really implemented a lot of smart growth principles, including the creation of a downtown zone. And that was really to manage the growth that this town would see over the following 10, 15 years since Global Foundries has entered. One of the things I fear right now with the board's direction is that they're rolling back some of those smart growth principles. And recently they've also rezoned the main corridors in town, Route 67 and Route 9, to commercial development. And what I worry that's going to do is really potentially hollow out the downtown area and potentially fill up the periphery of town with a lot of the franchises and national chains that we've seen come in lately. What I'd like to see You'll find out in a little while. Thank you. I gotta look at those pals.
Next, we'll hear from Tim Dunn.
Good evening, my name is Tim Dunn. I'm running for re-election to the Malta Town Council. Thank you, League of Women Voters of Saratoga County, for organizing this important event, and thank you all for attending. 4 years ago, Craig and I ran on a simple platform that would overhaul ethics, realign development and zoning, keep the town tax-free, and refocus on listening to residents. Today, I'm proud to say we've accomplished our first-term goals, but we've got unfinished business. While the Times Union has praised our work in ethics as setting an example for other towns to follow, we can't rest on our laurels. While we've overhauled zoning and development and restricted the overgrowth of apartments, we must now attract more small businesses. While we've remained general town tax-free and brought in more than $1.5 million in new revenue, the continued conservative spending is necessary to remain tax-free. While we've thrown open the doors of government, we can never stop striving for greater accountability. So as I said, we have unfinished business. We need to bring in new small businesses through our new Malta Works initiative. We need to be diligent to prevent destructive development such as high-rise and dense apartments. We need to continue our investments in our parks and recreation programs to ensure all residents have access to great indoor and outdoor activities. We need to do all these things while living within our means. I'll close with this. I cherish the work that I do for my community and the contributions my family provides. Whether it's supporting the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, community groups like the YMCA and Saratoga Bridges, sports programs like the Round Lake Malta Youth Baseball League and Miss Scotty's, or helping the Round Lake Auditorium and redefining their brand. My family's working hard to make our community better. I'm the only candidate running with an MBA and small business experience. I'm the only one raising a family and running a small business in this town. And that unique perspective will remain key to our team's success in Malta. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Craig Warner.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Craig Warner, and I'm running for re-election to Malta Town Council. To the Malta Town Council. Thank you, everyone, for helping here, showing up, and for all the planning also. My family and I was transferred here in 1990 from Pittsfield, and my children all went to school through the schools out here. They finished during school, graduated, and now I retired in 2017 from GE Energy. I was very blessed with a very good career. And while I was on the town council, I also served as board member representing Saratoga County at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and also the Capital District Youth Center. I co-founded the Malta Veterans Appreciation Program, and I continue with the Tech Valley Robotic Rumble Planning Committee. As a board member, we have accomplished zoning, ethics, kept the town without a general town tax, and I have addressed and studied the need for a water infrastructure throughout town. When elected, I will continue my effort to develop a 15 to 20-year plan for water infrastructure, serving those who have to have water and hydrants. Thank you. I could have talked longer, I guess, but.
Thank you, Craig. Please hold your applause. It is now time for questions from the audience. Please line up at the microphone for those who have questions. And when it is your turn to state your question, speak clearly into the microphone. Announce your name and if you live in Malta before asking the question. Questions should take no more than 30 seconds. And the candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions. You are not required to respond, gentlemen. You may pass if you wish. You have been given 2 red cards, which may be used during the question and answer session. Each card will allow an additional 1 minute to add to your response or to respond to something another candidate has said. Red cards cannot be used to extend your closing statements. Questions will be directed to candidates in rotation so that everyone will get a chance to be the first to respond. Our first question will go to Matt Koldrick, and we will start with our first question.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought we could ask questions of all of them. I didn't realize this is directed at Matt.
No, you will state your question, and then all the candidates will have a chance to answer that question, and then the next person will speak.
Okay. My name is Peter Young from 35 Yachtsman's Way. Got a brochure from the Malta Republicans, so I guess it's for you two gentlemen. And it refers to zero tolerance for unethical public officials by strengthening town ethics laws. Would you please let us know specifically what the unethical behavior was and who were the unethical public officials that you're seeking to control?
I'll say first of all, I'm a strong believer in ethics also. I hold myself to a very high ethical standard. My plan when I win election is to maintain a very high ethical standard within the town and also to increase transparency where appropriate. One of the areas where I think the ethics could potentially improve in the town is actually with corporate donations and who receives them and also where they're going. And if they do business within the town of Malta, I believe, and I would strongly advocate for all candidates and elected officials to not take corporate donations from those people that do business within the town of Malta. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
So, sorry. When we took office 4 years ago, actually Craig and I ran on a pretty robust platform around ethics because we'd come in at the time when the 24-year serving town clerk had been the subject of a lawsuit that cost the town $100,000 to settle for unethical behavior. We said that was a big problem and we needed to overhaul the ethics code in town. I was named chair of the Ethics Code Review Committee, and within 4 or 5 months, working with then Deputy Attorney Darren O'Connor and our town attorney, we overhauled our ethics code to include requiring public officials, elected officials, to comply with the code, which was not the case in the past. And that was actually recognized by the Times Union as being really an example for the rest of the region to follow. I will say on campaign finance, I think that's a very interesting topic when we talk about ethics. I know I've been very open in disclosing all of my campaign contributions, and you can go on the Board of Elections website to see those elections. I can't speak for the others here what their disclosure are, but I know you can go on the Board of Elections website and see Friends of Tim Dunn and see anyone who's given me any campaign contributions over the last 4 years.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. We'll now hear from Craig Warner.
In the past, we had some issues that we had to address and resolve them. Going forward, we wanted to put everything in the past by developing a strong ethics that was transparent. We have tried to organize so we're there every Saturday throughout our first year. There we sat down, anybody that wanted to show up could ask us questions about anything. As far as finances, I have disclosed all my finances as required by any official that runs for office. It's on the state website, and I don't have any other issue with it. I hope everybody does.
Ms. Gray, you want to ask your question?
Hello. Yes, Kathy Eisman, Town of Malta. I would appreciate you guys coming and answering questions. The current master plan that is under revision really forced or encouraged large apartment developments and a lot of heavy development in downtown. I feel that's almost complete. And how do you feel about the commercial corridors being developed? And why do you feel the way you feel?
Thank you.
Yes,
Tim Dunn?
So I think there's two important issues there that you highlight is the dense development of apartment buildings and commercial development in the corridors. I've been very clear and open about where I stand on this. I think that the plans for high-density apartments were far too big, far too fast, and way out of touch with the reality of what the residents of Malta want. That's why when we came into office 4 years ago, we were astonished. There were 1,500 apartment units either built, under construction, or approved and not yet built. And it was far too much in a town of 15,000 people. I'm proud to say we haven't approved a single new apartment through the existing processes, and in fact, in 2017, passed new legislation to limit development in the downtown corridor to 15 units per acre for apartment development. We've also instead said, let's try to develop our downtown and commercial corridors by opening up zoning to encourage the type of small business growth that we want to see in town. If we don't grow our commercial tax base, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to remain tax-free. I'm not sure how much longer the Boston Spa School District and other school districts are going to be able to stay in a positive situation. And I think it's irresponsible for us to not try to encourage more commercial development in commercial corridors.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
I wish I could speak that quick. When you're driving on 87, you head up to exit 12. You glance off on the east, what do you see? You see apartment after apartment after apartment after apartment. We have enough apartments. I really believe that. You have to have a little bit of everything, but that really pushed the envelope. What we did was try to restrict that growth so it wasn't as profitable. You can't tell them no. You can't tell them no. And because of the growth in the downtown, I was getting calls about setbacks and everything else. We had to take control of our zoning, correct that, keep it on Route 9 and 67 instead of continued sprawl throughout the town. As far as the comp plan goes in the future, I'd be really interested to hear what zoning changes they're apt to request, if any at all. The Route 9 rezoning was put in there so we don't infringe on people's backyards and sprawl that happens accordingly. I'll talk after.
Thank you, Craig. Matt Holdrick?
I'd like to start with a quote. Apartments are an attractive option for young couples just moving to the area who want to get acquainted with new surroundings before starting a family and buying a home. That was said by former supervisor and current deputy supervisor Vince DeLucia in 2017. When the 2005 comprehensive plan was done for the town of Malta, they created the downtown zone specifically because they knew that Global Foundries was going to bring 3,000 jobs and a whole heck of a lot of people with it. The only way you can manage that growth in a sustainable fashion is by creating this more dense development. Now, I agree with Tim that a lot of it did go up too quickly, and I think that was part of the backlash. But if you look at the survey that was done of residents of Malta this year, which almost 1,000 people answered, they said they wanted to see a mix of housing. And I think it's smart because a mix of housing gives a lot of different options for a lot of different people at a lot of different stages of their lives, but it's also fiscally responsible. More dense development requires less infrastructure. It generates more tax revenue per acre, 10 times the tax revenue compared to suburban sprawl. And in fact, it requires less in terms of ongoing services like fire protection. It can cut fire protection by 10%. When you put up a blanket ban on a specific type of dense development, what you do is you actually encourage sprawl. You cannot stop the demand for people moving to this town. We have jobs, we're a great place to live, we got a lot of great open space. And so I'm a believer in the fact that we need to manage that growth, return to the smart growth principles from the 2005 plan. And in terms of commercial corridors,
Thank you.
yep, we'll continue that later. Thank you.
I'd like to use the red card then.
Sure, Tim.
I certainly respect Matt's opinion here, but the reality is that same comprehensive plan survey that he referenced, more than 60% of the respondents said they wanted development other than residential. That same survey, multiple times, residents want fewer apartments. And at the same time, 1,500 apartment units have come online or planned to come online over a very short time period. Global Foundries has met their demand. Global Foundries has 3,000 employees. And unless the goal is to continue to aggressively grow the population of Malta and overbuild throughout all of downtown Malta and the rest of the town, then there's no need for more dense apartments. And in fact, there is no ban on apartments. We've restricted apartments. There are currently 7 zones throughout the town where apartments can be built. To say that apartments are banned is just incorrect.
Thank you. Matt, you may use your red card.
This is an important issue, and I want to make sure we clarify it here. Tim, in his article in the Times-Union, said, quote, "We've slammed the door shut on apartments in the town of Malta." Now, so he just said there wasn't a ban. He said he slammed the door shut on them. I don't know where he is with that. The thing is, when it comes to, he's a big believer that residential development is resource intensive. And when it comes to suburban sprawl, it is resource intensive. But in fact, more dense developments, mixed-use buildings in the downtown area are run at a tax surplus. They generate higher shares of county sales tax, which is what the town runs on. And if you increase, I'm a firm believer that we need to develop commercial businesses, but if you develop them along corridors, along Route 9 or Route 67, it's going to be the same type of sprawl that you have with suburban subdivisions. If you keep that development in downtown, we've got areas right now with empty storefronts. We're not paying any attention to where we're going with that. I want to see the town really refocus on bringing and focusing on the downtown area and focusing commercial development in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Just checking for red cards. You can ask your question.
I want to thank all 3 of you for coming tonight. My name is Sharon Pinio. I live in Round Lake in the village of Malta. In the town of Malta. My question sort of follows the discussion you've just had. With other communities in Saratoga County growing rapidly and residential growth returning less revenue than it consumes, how would you make sure Malta has the resources it needs to deliver services? Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Warner will answer the question first.
Thank you for that question. We are aggressively seeking other services to help offset a lost school revenue that is out there. We're very aggressive on it. I was probably the first town councilman that questioned that when we got a new superintendent of schools out here. Darren and I, the supervisor, went in, sat with him and said, "What's your plan for the depreciation going forward in global?" He said, "Well, I don't have a plan. But the past superintendent had a plan." So I said, okay, we're gonna sit down here, we're gonna find a plan, and we are aggressively trying to find businesses coming in that fits our vision in the town. Going forward. But I was the first one to bring that question up. Darren and I responded instantly. We met twice since then, and we're following through on our actions. How do we fill that void? We're doing it. In the past, others.
Craig, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Matt Coldrick.
So again, I think the smart growth principles that were put into the 2005 plan were the right decisions in terms of you want to have a developed downtown area because it gives you the most revenue per acre. And I want to focus more on bringing more locally owned businesses into the area. We've had a lot of chain and franchise growth in the town of Malta. We've had some locally owned businesses come in too, which has been great. But I want to really rededicate ourselves to that. When you look at a locally owned business, it actually keeps 3 times the revenue in town compared to a franchise-owned business. So I think one of those things is we can focus on that. We can continue to develop the downtown area, the downtown zone, because that, again, will give us the most revenue per acre. And if we continue to develop along the corridors, there's going to be inefficiencies with that type of development. You might get a hit from having that increased assessment from that commercial property, but the commensurate increase in resources is also there for commercial sprawl as it is for residential sprawl. And I think the main area where you're looking at it is fire protection services. Fire protection now in the town of Malta accounts for about 20% of the overall budget in the town. And that's only going to increase as you develop along the corridors before you develop along in the downtown area or fully develop that area. I would really want to refocus again on making sure that we build out the downtown zone. Don't rule out any one specific type of use because I think that encourages sprawl, and I think sprawl is what ultimately results in will result in a town
Thank
tax.
you, Matt. Tim Dunn?
So I want to say it one more time so everybody hears it loud and clear. Apartments have not been banned. I'm not sure where that keeps coming from. We have put a strict restriction on it in the downtown corridor. There are 7 zones in the town where apartments can be built. If someone wants to say that they're going to stick with dense development and apartment development as their key to Malta succeeding, then I wish them the best of luck. But the residents of the town of Malta don't want more apartments. They don't want that sort of growth. And the reality is, more apartments, more residential growth means more residents. It means more demand for services. It means more demands on our school district. And it creates a net negative impact on the bottom line. As I said, since we took office, our changes in development strategy have resulted in new revenue to the town of more than $1.5 million. That's not coming out of your pockets. That's coming from county sales tax. That's a real difference. That's a real impact. That keeps us from having a town tax.
Thank you. If you want to ask your question. Thank you. If you'd like to ask your question.
Hi, I'm Woody Slogan. I also live in the town of Malta. Thank all of you for considering town government and public service. Can you hear me? My question is, what town, specifically town committees, have each of you served on in the last 6 years?
Thank you.
Town.
Matt Coldrick will give the first answer.
So as you're probably aware, Woody, I have not served on any town committees, but I have served as a village trustee since 2018. I was on the water committee in Round Lake since 2017, and I was previously on the planning board in Round Lake for 3 previous years. I have worked with the town of Malta on certain projects in the past, so, and thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Matt. Tim Dunn?
I served for several years on the Luther Forest Community Response Board, the Luther Forest Technology Campus Community Response Board, looking at the impacts of global foundries coming in, how the traffic patterns and roadways impacted our community, how that impacted specifically Luther Forest, and as a resident of Luther Forest, that obviously got close to home. Also served as an alternate on the zoning board for about 1.5 years, I believe it was.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
Yes, I was on the Round Lake Trustees Board. I was on the Ag Committee, and I served on the zoning variance for 4 years on that. And I also served on the sign committee, and I've also chaired the water and sewer committee for the last 4 years. And there's probably a few more in there, incidental things. I'm always out of the house. I'm the kind of a fellow that not only brings questions up because I have a slight stuttering issue, but I do more in the background than probably a handful. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question?
I'm Marcia Murray, and I also live in the town of Malta. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Marcia Murray. I also live in the town of Malta, and my question is, the town is currently in the process of developing a complete...
Can't hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Just hurry up, Joe. The town is currently in the process of developing a complete streets project along Route 9 in the downtown area. That is designed to improve walkability and create a more pleasant space. Do you agree with this initiative?
Thank you. We will start with Tim Dunn.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been obviously the Complete Streets Initiative is something that started even before we took office, but we've actually been working on trying to adjust that and get it implemented for the last several years with no impact to town taxpayers because we have a lot of grant funds and mitigation funds that are going into that. One of the challenges we ran into was as we were trying to meet the needs of our growing community, we made a lot of project revisions to that proposal and working with the business community and several that are here tonight, adjusting that plan to make sure that any decisions that were going to be made were not going to hurt existing small businesses. We got delayed a little bit on that. We actually, I believe, just got a new proposal in recently that unfortunately is a little higher than what we were hoping for. But we're going to be going back to the drawing board there and trying to get that adjusted so that we can do it within budget because being able to have those connections to be able to bike and walk and be able to get to some of our great growing small businesses that we have in that downtown corridor is just so vitally important. Thanks, Marcia.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
I am a full advocate of the complete streets. I've been schooled on it often. I think it's about time that we had decided walks on either side of the street. We were transparent. We met with businesses all down Route 9. They gave us their input. We revised the plans numerous times. We complied with the fire department. There were meshes, turnaround areas. We invited everyone in. They gave their comments on it. It was a great program. The only problem is the economy is doing so well here in this area that the quotes came in much higher than ever planned on. We went and recreated it, somewhat, put it back out there, and it's still higher. I'm an advocate. We got to do it within our budget that we first planned on. Doesn't cost the taxpayers the extra dollars that some areas have to put into it to expand their complete streets. We can be very responsible with our dollars as we've been in the past. We have to do it in the future also. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Coldren?
The Complete Streets project is a top priority for me. If you look at any of my campaign literature, it's right there. Smart growth, preserve open space, bring the Complete Streets project to fruition. I think that when you have complete streets, it obviously makes it safer for pedestrians and cyclists, but the real important part is that it makes the downtown area more successful. In fact, I think one of the reasons why we see a lack of locally owned businesses and empty storefronts in certain areas in the downtown is because we don't have a complete streets program that is being done. I think that obviously you need to be budget conscious, but you also need to be forward thinking too. And I think the sooner that we get that project done and the less humming and hawing we have with it, I think the better we will be. And I think that less likely we'll have to focus on developing outside the downtown core. We can spend times developing the core, build the complete streets, get pedestrians downtown. There was a study done that said that the average person in the town of Malta spends less than 30 minutes in the downtown area. The average person in Saratoga Springs spends over 4 hours there. I'm not saying we're going to be Saratoga Springs or anything close to it, but I think when you make the town walkable, you give people a reason to be downtown, to not just go for 1 cup of coffee, but maybe to go for a cup of coffee and then shopping some retail and then maybe going to grab a bite to eat at a restaurant. So I'm a huge proponent of it. It would be a top priority for me in my first term. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that Craig Warner raised his red card. Thank you.
That, as far as having a dense area, it's true. It's lower cost. But what I'm concerned about, your platform seems to be right hand in hand with Agenda 21. You're all green space, you're all dense areas and stuff. What happens when that area fills up? What are you going to do after that? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for your parks?
I love the answer.
And all your businesses going forward. When you have to deal with that, your platform will change. There's no question about it. We went in and we had to redefine our complete streets project over and over and over because of the dollar. I did not want to burden the taxpayers with tax increases just because of a complete streets project? Come on. It didn't make sense. We have to work within the budget.
Thank you, Craig.
I was asked a direct question, so do I have to use a red card to answer
To
that
answer
question?
that question, yes.
I'll wait till another time.
Thank you. Would you like to ask a question, please?
I would. Hi, Tracy O'Rourke, Town of Malta. My question's kind of a bummer, sorry everybody, but my question for the candidates pertains to the effect that social media has on a campaign. While social media can prove to be a useful campaign tool, it can also all too easily be misused with one click of the post button, damaging, outlandish information with virtually no basis in truth can be posted for all to see. As a viewer, too often will take this misinformation as truth based on fact. Once unsubstantiated information is posted for all to see, it becomes impossible to take back. You can't unring a bell. At the very least, a retraction or apology would be in order. However, it is nearly impossible to refute or set the record straight. My question to the candidates is, do you believe it is both irresponsible and unethical to post information that is unsubstantiated and in no way based on fact? And how would you handle a false claim directed against you as a candidate that has been posted on social media? Again, my name is Tracy O'Rourke.
Thank you. We will start with Craig Warner.
Frankly, I think politics has changed because of social platforms. You had a good point. A click of a button, and it's gone, and it's out there. I totally believe in, if you put something out there, it should be factual. It shouldn't be hearsay. I think social media has changed politics. I've been going out doing door-to-door since August, and I've gone to almost every part of this town. I've met a lot of people. And let me tell you, what I hear from the people is a lot different than what I see my opponent and his social platform that he has out there. I don't know where he's getting the info from, but I'm not getting that door-to-door. So maybe you got a great point.
Thank you. Matt Coldren?
I think social media, and as it relates to politics, can be a force for good, but it can also be a total double-edged sword. And unfortunately, it's the same thing for both in terms of social media can get a message out there really quick, which when you use it for good, can get a message out to your constituents. You don't have to go door to door to see 11,000 people, although it helps. But when it's used for negativity and outright mistruth and lies, it's almost impossible to get that back. You know, they say a lie makes it all the way around the world before the truth has its chance to get its pants on, and I totally believe that. And I do try to correct the record occasionally. Unfortunately, my opponent has taken to deleting comments on his page that disagree with him. Personally, I find that to be potentially unconstitutional. And then second of all, there's this mysterious Team Malta page where we don't know who actually runs it, who's behind it, and some of the most outlandish lies have been from that page, unfortunately. Everything from that I was busing people in from New York City. I mean, it's just incredible. But I try to set the record straight where possible, if not censored. And like I said, for the most part, I think social media can be used as a force for good to get the message out there to voters that might not necessarily always attend town board meetings. If any of you have been to town board meetings, you can see the attendance. But
According to the rules, do I have a chance to ask another question, a comment question?
You can if you get back in line.
Am I going to be allowed to?
Yes, Tim Dunn's going to respond.
So I agree, you know, a lot with both of what's been said here, because this year in social media, I've seen some of the most outlandish, untrue things said. It's disgusting, and it's unfortunately apparently where politics is. I know when I post things on social media, my name is attributed to it. If you do a promoted post on Facebook, you're required to put your name on it. There's a rigorous process that goes behind it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that say a lot of nonsense on social media that's not true. I guess it's the world that we're living in. It's terrible. I try to correct the record when I can, and it's apparently where we are.
Thank you. Would you like to ask your question, sir?
My name is Ted Willett. I am a resident of town of Malta. This question is along the lines of ethics. The town of Malta has a sign code. Are your signs in compliance with that ordinance?
Thank you. We will start with Matt Coldren.
yes, they are. And I have about 1 minute and 25 seconds left, so if I could, I'd like to answer Greg's question from earlier about how am I going to pay for the Complete Streets project. Currently, the town is borrowing $500,000 this year from its unrestricted fund balance just to balance the budget. So, you know, it's pretty crazy that the town can somehow find money for projects that it deems necessary, but not others. So I would make it a priority, like I said, to go ahead and make sure we get the Complete Streets project. I think it's important to get it done in a fiscally responsible way. But I think right now what happens when you go to developing areas outside of the town, not outside the town, but outside the downtown area along the corridors, you're leaving the downtown area hollowed out. You're not letting it realize its full potential. I think we need to take the time to make sure that the downtown area realizes its full potential first, and then along the road we can potentially look at developing other areas within the town. I want to make sure it's a priority that we preserve the 500 acres of open space and green space within the town, because I think that that's the reason why most of us live here. We love the trails, we love the parks, we love the rural nature of the town of Malta. And so I think it's totally doable. I reject the fact that we can't do it within our budget. I think we totally can. It's just a case of making sure that it's a priority. And right now, quite frankly, although there has been some lukewarm support from a lot of the board,
Thank you.
I don't find that. Thank you.
Tim Dunn?
So just to first, yes, my signs are all in compliance with the Malta Sign Code. And to make it clear for everybody, what the Malta Sign Code calls for is signs are not allowed to be within 50 feet of a roundabout. Signs are not allowed to have moving parts on them. And when you place signs, you're required to register them with the office, the Planning and Codes Enforcement Office. All of my signs are in compliance, and I've even posted many times that if any of my signs are out of compliance, please let me know so I can address it immediately. To the two other points Matt just made, the proposal we've gotten back on the Complete Streets project is $300,000 over our budgeted amount. So in going into a tough budget year, if it's a priority to overspend on a project that's a result of a good economy, that's not something I'm signing on to. There's ways to make that project work within budget. And I'm certainly not going to jeopardize the fact that the town of Malta has a 0 fiscal stress score as ranked by the State Comptroller's Office. I'm not going to risk the fact that the town has an A1 credit rating from Moody's to build a few extra sidewalks when we can do it within budget, within reason, and be responsible.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
Yeah. The question on the sign code. I sat on that committee for months, analyzing it, and we went over it and got a great transparent discussion on it. As far as moving parts on any kind of signage, it was very concerning and distracting to drivers. All my signs are totally in compliance. I've had to move some of my signs that the individual, I made it very clear to him, it's got to be 50 feet within the end of that roundabout. It ended up right next to Matt's, and his is still sitting there. And it's like 25 feet from it. So I had to separate my sign from him. I don't have any moving parts on my sign. I'm not distracting any drivers. Yeah, they're bright red, but they're not. They're in full compliance. And they're 2 years old, or 4 years old. So I'm cheap. Right from kindergarten. Very responsible with my money. Reuse my sign. Didn't buy any pinwheels on them or flags. I was told I couldn't have flags on mine. I wanted to put flags. It would have been great. No, it's blowing in the wind. Can't distract the drivers.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask your question, sir.
My name is Tim Downey, and I'm a resident of Malta. And my question is, the town does not impose a general tax, a highway tax, or an ambulance district tax currently. Do you agree with this approach?
Thank you. We will start with Tim Dunn.
Yes, absolutely. As we've seen over the last 4 years, we can deliver high-quality services. We can drive new revenue to the town without imposing taxes on our residents. I think, when you look at spending priorities in this town, we ought to be thinking about, making sure that we're taking care of making sure we're taking care of needs before we worry about wants. And I think that sometimes can be a difference in budgeting. That's one way of getting it quiet.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
We have a great highway. We have a great highway department. We analyze that budget very closely. Roger's always wants more, but is very, very responsible. Very responsible. He does a great job on the highways with the snow and everything else. I applaud him for it. The ambulance, as long as I'm in office, I will never support a privatized ambulance service. We have a great department. And unfortunately, I've had to use that a few times. And thank God we got it. If we ever have to if we have to have that private, and the firm has to drive 15 minutes at there. It's too much. When I called it was 2 o'clock in the morning. They were there in 5 minutes. 2 ambulances. They spent almost 4 hours on that one call at a fixed price. They lost a lot of money. But we're not going to lose them. Somehow we're going to find a way to gain it.
Thank you.
Matt Coldrick?
I'm a father of 2 and soon to be 4 children. I work a regular job. I have a big house where every square inch of it needs to be renovated. And so I want my taxes to be as low as possible. And so having no town tax for me is one of the reasons why I moved to the town of Malta. I just have a different approach, and I believe that the way that my opponents are thinking in terms of how they're going to keep the town tax, they may get a sugar rush from a rush to develop the corridors in town. I don't think it's sustainable. And right now, like I said, the 2020 tentative budget takes $500,000 out of the unrestricted fund balance. It's, you know, the town is spending over $10 million, I believe, this year, and they're only going to raise about 9.5 in revenues. They projected that the county sales tax share will grow by 2%, when this year it only grew by 1%. So I question the sort of fiscal, the sustainability of this approach when you're having to withdraw money from unrestricted funds. And also, too, we have been in a good economy for a long time. What happens if the economy takes a turn south? I think if we develop the downtown area, bring that area to its full potential, we can weather an economic storm in the future, whereas if we start building wantonly along the commercial corridors, allowing developers to build this kind of sprawlish town through the rural areas of town, I don't think that that's a sustainable business model that's going to get us
Thank you.
where we need to be going forward. Thank you.
You want to ask your question, sir?
Thank you very much for your interest in serving our town. Can you hear me okay?
Don't let them do that.
Well, thank you. Go back to my old career, right? First off, thank you very much, Matt, for resurrecting my name. I'll proudly tell my wife about that tonight. I'm Vince DeLucia. I'm a resident of town of Malta. I've seen some of the campaign literature. Mr. Coldrick, you were talking about the town acquiring, one of the desires is to acquire more walking and bicycle trails and park property. Number one is, are you aware of how many acres of park property the town maintains for its citizens and how many miles of trails? And secondly, have you done any financial analysis in terms of how much that extra land would cost us and the maintenance in perpetuity? What the cost would be and how we're going to pay for it. Thank you very much.
You all have an opportunity to answer this question if you choose. Craig Warner?
Malta has some great parks. There's no question about it. And we have a lot of acres. Over 500 acres of it is park. And I will be very clear. I love the parks. They're very expensive to maintain. And they even can be more expensive to acquire. And for us to expand something that we're already, I think it's 3 times larger than the average town that is our size. We got 3 times the quantity of parks. And he wants more. And each time you put something into a land trust, that costs the town big, big money. I don't know where he would get the dollars to acquire more parks, more trails, because maybe he hasn't been out there and, we got 3 times the quantity of a town our size. Enough is enough. We got to maintain what we got at a big expense. If we do a good job of it, we've gone back, renovated parks recently for hundreds of thousands of dollars that we gotten grants for it and help on it, and we'll do well.
Thank you, Craig. Matt Colbrick?
Yes, I'm aware that we have 500 acres of open and green space in the town of Malta, and I believe that that is why the majority of people live in this town, because we have open space that we all cherish, because we have woods and parks and trails and farmland. That is why we live here. And to get to try to push to develop that when we haven't yet reached the full potential in the downtown area, to me, is irresponsible. I'm not for buying more land up. I've never said that. I don't know where that came from. But I'm about preserving the space that we have by focusing on developing the downtown area, bringing it to its full potential, and making sure that we maintain the quality of life in the town of Malta that we all moved here for. This is why we live here. This is why we don't live in other towns in Saratoga County or elsewhere in the Capital District. This is very important to me. It's very important to a lot of people that I talk to going door to door. And, you know, we have land that we can use in the future, but why not realize the full potential of what we got right now? And I don't think we've done that. I don't think, again, the Complete Streets project, need versus want. If you have completed sidewalks, you're going to make the whole downtown area more attractive to businesses coming in. You're going to drive more sales tax revenue by having a higher assessment in the area, because the quality of life will improve for everybody when you have that. So to me, yeah, that is a need. That is a need in the town. Because if we want a true downtown area, you have to make it a true downtown. You can't have it just be a state highway with a couple of, you know, small businesses on the side.
Thank you. Tim Dunn?
So I think there's a couple of important things that were talked about there that we need to really make sure that we're clear about. First of all, the town of Malta has over 560 acres of protected open space, developed parkland and trails. That is, Craig referenced, 3 times the amount recommended. That's recommended by the U.S. Parkland Trust Association. That means we currently have enough parkland and protected open space to serve the population of the city of Binghamton, New York. I'll let that sit in for a minute. We have enough to serve the city of Binghamton, 45,000 people. Now, when you start hearing we need more open space than to serve 45,000 people, we need to build more apartments, and we need more dense development, I wonder where the vision is and the strategy is here. We have a robust system to fund our parks and recreation. We spend nearly $1 million a year in funding the wonderful programs that we have. My family loves these programs and takes advantage of them, as do people from all over the county that come in from outside of the town. We have ample opportunities, wonderful parklands, and to invest more and grow more is just not in line with logic. Further, you know, we keep hearing this contention about the form-based code. First of all, if the form-based code was such an attractive opportunity for developers, wouldn't these storefronts be filled? Wouldn't these projects be built out? Wouldn't downtown be full? Probably, right? Second, the form-based code requires private development to put in sidewalks when they come in. So we're trying, you know, obviously Complete Streets adds value to that, it adds an opportunity, but the form-based code, as we've seen it for the last 12 years, it isn't working.
Thank you. You'd like to ask your question?
Hi, unlike other people that have spoken, my name is Darlene McGraw. I live in the city of Saratoga Springs currently. I'm not trying to say anything about myself because I'm just who I am, but do you guys know how crazy people like myself are that choose to come here, do business in your town, and walk all the way from the city of Saratoga Springs by Broadway and by like the state park, all the way over here to do business in your town? You understand yesterday, after leaving Malta Med and being on medication that made me really tired after a medical emergency, I came all the way down to your town instead of going to the hospital that was only a couple miles from where I was. I came here to do business in your town and walked all the way from 9 and 67 down to 50, and you guys are not doing a good job so far with Complete Streets. So how do you feel that you can make the Complete Streets better and also ADA compliant, because that's a good part of your town, because if not, you can lose lots, thousands, and even quarters of millions of dollars by not being ADA compliant.
I'd like to start with Matt Colbrick.
Again, the Complete Streets project would be a priority for me. I find, you know, the fact that a person who's been on the board for the last 4 years complaining about the failure of the downtown area to be quite remarkable. Personally, I find that one of the reasons, it might have been execution. It wasn't that long after the form-based code came in that then they were making edits to it. There are areas where on the west side of Route 9 you have all the apartments, and then on the east side you have a lot of businesses, and there's not many places to cross in between. So those types of things, I think, would actually, again, putting the Complete Streets project in will make the town more attractive for businesses to come into the area. It's a need for the town. It's an absolute need, and we need to do it. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Tim Dunn?
So I think we've all beaten the dead horse that we all agree we want to see Complete Streets built out and we like the project. And when the money is, I think there's just a difference of opinion about when you want to actually commence the project. I think some of us would like to wait until we have the money to do so, and others perhaps want to, borrow or go into debt for it. I would say, one of the big priorities we had when we took office 4 years ago was fixing the broken zoning in this town. 3/4 of this town was zoned residential with no rhyme or reason, and the town had to go through ridiculous planned development districts to build anything. And that's a system that we stopped. We slammed the door shut on it to fix it and have real zoning in place. Zoning that is going to bring in commercial investment that will also leverage the public infrastructure that we want. We went over, and I know on 67 how big of a disaster that is, traversing that. We had a group of homeowners come to us and say, please change the zoning here because we can't get out of our driveways and we can't sell our homes. So we took action. So why did we not fix the broken downtown corridor yet? Well, we had an awful lot of other zoning problems that had built up for over 20 years that had to be fixed. We had dozens of developers tell us, I'll never do a project in the town of Malta again, until we started taking up some of these initiatives. And now we're finally starting to see growth. We're starting to see investment. So, I think we've got a pretty good track record of seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
It's interesting to hear Matt talk about density downtown when the form-based code was intended to do just that. Now, how do you transition that out? There's a plan for that, going down 9, going up 9 and 67. But the developers do it. The town does not do that. They just created the form-based code with some of the best consultants in the country. And the other thing is, that our town was the first one to do the form-based code. We were the first ones to take the chance at it. And it's doing just that. It's creating a dense environment, but you can't have that density just keep growing and growing and growing. That's a part of our zoning that we had to apply on Route 9 and 67. And some of the reason for that is there were already commercial structures down there. We had to create a transition coming into the town and going out of the town. But the form-based code is working. And it's doing exactly what it was intended to do. Just like Timmy said, developers were coming to us and said, you know what?
Craig,
We don't
thank you
even want to
very
do
much.
business there.
Thank
So
you,
we
Craig. Thank
created
you.
that.
We have time for one more question.
My name is Candace Schmidt, and I'm the lucky one to have the last question. Thank you, gentlemen, for throwing your hats in the ring. I know it's an awful sacrifice, sometimes nights and days and that kind of thing. I just want to turn the tables a little bit. The New York State Comptroller has issued results of a financial stress test for municipalities and found that Malta was not stressed, ranked very well, as a matter of fact. What would you do to keep this in place?
Thank you. Tim Dunn?
But that's one that's really fantastic that we have that. And we're fortunate to have a great staff in the town of Malta that's helped us get and maintain that position. I think it fundamentally starts with a few basics. Spending within your means, trying to make sure that we're investing in our people and our equipment and our roadways, and making sure we make smart investments so we're not having to replace a problem and rather focus on needed maintenance. I know when we came into office, Roger showed us trucks that were so severely rusted out that they had signs welded over the floorboards to keep snow and slush from splashing up. That's benign neglect. We've changed that. We've tried to invest where necessary, but do it in a prudent manner. We're going to be committed to remaining tax-free. We may not be debt-free. I'd love to be at some point, but we're going to have to bond for things over time. We're going to continue to be very conservative in the way that we spend to make sure that we bring in the appropriate amount of revenue. That's what drives a lot of our decisions on zoning and development, to try to bring in investment and capital that is going to leverage public infrastructure and lessen the burden on our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Warner?
Great question. We have an excellent controller that the town board is extremely happy with. He does a marvelous job. And to hold his scores that he gets in our finances, in our audits, repeatedly, year after year after year. Different auditing firms coming back and raving about him. He's meticulous, and he keeps the board in line. How would we continue that? We do what we've been doing for years. It works. It really works. You've got to wait for that sidewalk or wait for the developer. Add in that sidewalk. We're responsible for you. We're looking out for you guys every single October when it comes to budget time. We don't overspend. We actually talk about how are we going to buy a truck? How are we going to buy a car for somebody to get around town to do his job? That's how meticulous it is. Or how are we going to pay for this sign? And I urge every one of you to come to one of the budget meetings and sit down and hear it. Because that's where the real work is done. Because we don't rely on you people to pay another tax, to do something else. It's a fad because he's hearing it on social
Craig, thank you very much.
media or Facebook.
Thank you. Matt Holdren?
I congratulate the town on having a zero fiscal stress score. There was a small score on the environmental stress score that the comptroller also looked at. And that was in part due to the fact that the value of people's homes in the town of Malta only increased by 0.08% in the last year. And that does not actually stack up that favorably with other homes in the capital region. But in terms of fiscal health, it's obviously in a very good place. I do have concerns for when the economy will inevitably turn south and what happens. There's a decreasing assessment on global foundries every year. And I don't think that we can have this sprawlish commercial development lead in a hamster wheel of just developing every last square inch of town. I don't think that that's a path to success. I think we need to keep things focused on the core mission of the 2005 town plan, which was smart growth principles, because that returns the most revenue to town per acre. That's a fact that you can look that up online. 10 times as much revenue per acre as compared to suburban sprawl. If we start developing the commercial corridors before we've realized the full potential of the downtown area, when the economy does turn south, and it will eventually, we're going to be in some trouble. And that is the major concern that I have for the future of the town, and that's when I'm elected, I'll work to make sure that we avoid some of those issues.
Thank you. It is now time for the closing statements. Candidates will have 1 minute each for your closing statements, and we will go in reverse order. Craig Warner?
You sure I can't use 2 minutes? I want to thank you all. When I got transferred out here in 1990, I brought my wife out to Schenectady, close to GE. We went to Scotia, Niskayuna, looked at the taxes, looked at the dumps. When I got up to Malta, I loved that community, and I'll be damned if all these apartments turn in and look like Schenectady, and you guys get it 1 point-some-odd% tax to pull businesses in, to make it a walkable street. That's why we lost the aquatic center, because they had a big boatload of dollars down there, and they grabbed it. They went for it. And I worked like hell to get them up here. Timmy and I sat down, we worked to track them in. It wouldn't cost you guys 1 penny. We lost them. We lost them
Thank
to
you
their
very
tax
much.
increases.
Thank you. Tim Dunn?
Something. Yeah, every time. Something about me. I didn't prepare a closing statement, so I wanted to share a couple key numbers with you folks. You heard a lot tonight about spending and taxes. You heard a lot about different philosophies on development. I think it's very clear that two of us want to slow the pace of development and want to see more reasonable development, and others, the other does not. And I think we've heard one approach to budgeting and a different approach to budgeting. Two key figures. Realtor.com says that the second worst factor on home valuation is proliferation of rental units. 14% negative impact on home value. Worse only is adult entertainment venues. The other key statistic I want to leave with you is when you think about record and development, the town of Malta, we've done everything we can to try to hold a development at bay and be smart. Over the last several years, that's not been the case in the region. In fact, in the village of Round Lake, just last year, there were 3 times the number of building permits issued per capita.
Thank you very much.
than the town of
Thank you.
Malta.
Thank you. Matt Holdridge?
Thank you all so much for coming tonight again, and thank you to League of Women Voters and Kansas for hosting this candidate forum. We do have some clear choices in this election. You have a choice of more sprawl or a return to the smart growth principles that were enshrined in that 2005 comprehensive plan. You have a choice of preservation of open space or development of that open space. And you have a choice of a complete streets project that will fill the downtown area with pedestrians and locally owned businesses, or an empty streets nightmare where the only thing we really see in town is more and more traffic and more empty storefronts. Sprawl's not the solution to keeping our town tax-free. Smart growth is. Smart growth costs 38% less infrastructure. There's 10 times the revenue generated per acre of usage. And it cuts ongoing services like fire protection, which consumes 20% of our budget right now, by up to 10%. I hope I've earned your vote tonight, but if I haven't, I promise I'm going to keep fighting for it between now and Election Day. And again, thank you all so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all for demonstrating your civic concern by attending this event this evening and being so polite and gracious to everyone here tonight. Also, don't forget to pick up the League's upcoming events from our literature table in the back. And also, voting day is on Tuesday, Election Day is on Tuesday, November 5th. But starting this Saturday, we have some select early voting days. Early voting starts on October 26th and runs to November 3rd. We have 2 flyers in the back there that list the locations and the times that early voting is open in Saratoga County. Pick one up. If you have any questions, the League ladies over at the table can answer any of your questions on early voting. So thank you again for coming tonight, and I hope to see you at the polls. Thank you.